Hello guys, it's John Messenger. To have a Beyblade discussion. So we have potentially our final BU release and maybe even our final Beyblade Burst release. Can't believe I'm saying that. However, we do have an announcement coming in March, so we're not like completely without any Beyblade stuff. I'll probably make kind of a video about the end of Beyblade Burst at some point. Probably give it a little while just to make sure it's over. And then I'll cover the news for the next generation. But for now, we have one last bay that we know of, and that is Barricade Lucifer, illegal bearing mobius 10. So while I talk about this thing a little bit and some of the reused parts, I'm going to just kind of cycle a few images on screen here so you can kind of check it out, in case you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, so Barricade Lucifer, honestly really cool name. I just gotta say that. I think Barricade's a cool name. Barrier is what I would have expected, but I kind of like Barricade a lot more. So yeah, cool name. We'll talk more about the, Lucifer core itself, the Barricade blade, and then of course the bearing mobius driver in a bit, going over those individually as they are new parts. But for now, illegal and 10. So these parts are a bit contentious to whether or not they're like good choices. I know some people have been fine with them, others have complained. I think these are perfectly fine, and I will explain why I think that they're fine and why some of the complaints are unfair. So, illegal, a really good part, I think. I would have expected like Fortress or even maybe Giga, although Helios just used it, so maybe not. Probably Fortress though. But would not have seen illegal coming. However, yeah, it's fine enough, and it's a pretty good part. I don't see a problem with it. And 10, I just think if you're going to reuse an armor, 10 was exactly what I would have expected for Lucifer, just based on its design. Now, I have seen some people complain about these parts. I know some people wanted a third BU lock disc. Since we don't have many, and they've really been pushing BU locks on cores, we probably should get more discs for that, but we just kind of didn't. Also, I know a lot of people, including myself, really wanted the 5 armor, because we have 0 through 10, we're just missing 5. It just seems really weird to leave out 5, Again, maybe there will be more releases, we don't know yet, we just know what there was for like 2022. Although it does seem unlikely. Anyway. But yeah, we do have, these 2 reused parts here, instead of, those 2 parts that everyone was looking for. So I actually think it is unfair to have expected them from Lucifer. I think, obviously, yeah, a third BU lock disc would have been great. We all wanted it. But I wouldn't have pushed that onto Lucifer to have, same with the 5 armor. The 5 armor really doesn't even make sense for Lucifer. So even though, yeah, I would have wanted them, I also, I don't think putting it all on Lucifer, it kind of just fell onto Lucifer, really, because it's the final, or potentially final release. So, again, I think that was a little bit unfair, to expect. Although, because, again, it is the final release, everyone was really hoping for those things. So overall, is it kind of disappointing to not get them? Obviously. But, Lucifer itself, I think these parts are perfectly fine, so I don't want to hold it against the Bay. And, in the future, when we look at the entire line as a whole, I don't think anyone's going to hold that against Lucifer in, another year or two, so I think it's fine. Illegal and 10, perfectly fine choices. Now let's talk about the driver. An actual new part. Bearing mobius. So bearing mobius. This is not a part I would have chosen. Kind of expected it, though. I really expected a drift variant, honestly. I thought drift was going to be the driver. I thought it was going to be metal bearing drift, but they picked bearing mobius. At first, I was not excited about this, but they're doing the bearing drift thing where they do change the bottom piece of the driver to make it more cone-shaped rather than just flat. I can see some issues with this. It might tilt too much, but at the same time, this actually, to me, makes it better in a sense because, let's be honest, it was bearing mobius, just literally mobius with a bearing in it, if that's what they did. It's just better mobius. There's no debate about it. And that's kind of boring. But because, they're changing the bottom piece and it has the bearing, okay, the bearing is good, that's a plus, but the bottom part makes it kind of perform differently. It's much much more of a different part than Mobius, so it definitely helps to differentiate those two parts. So to me, even if it's worse, I would rather have it than just have a buffed Mobius. It's already ridiculous for LED anyway. We didn't need just that, so I think making it different is cool. Hopefully it's good, but overall I do like this driver. I like that they gave it the bearing drift treatment where the bottom part is different. So cool. This is a fine driver. Again, would have expected drift, but I'm not upset about it. It's also purple, which is interesting, but you know what? Cool. That is fine by me. So now let's get into the layer, well, the new parts of the layer. The Barricade blade. Okay, so this blade has a weird shape, but I kind of like it. It's very strange looking, you know, has like the four-sided thing going on. It's like a square type of thing. But you know, we need some weird shapes, I think. We haven't had as many weird shapes in Burst recently. At least not that weird, so kind of cool to get something like this. Also, we have the four blades, the four rubber blades. They will stick out. During battle, you know, like 2 defense from Variant Lucifer, they will come out, and then as, you know, the battle progresses, they will kind of slowly retract. Yeah, perfect. I really missed this barrier gimmick. I thought that Lucifer the End was not really as interesting, because free spin, cool, but it had to be like a limit break ability. It was like fine enough, but I just missed the rubber barrier, and yeah, we got it back, so cool. Definitely a fan of that. I like how they did it. I like how they, you know, made it sort of kind of go outward more in, not outward more, but it's like kind of like flush with the blade, if that makes sense. Not flush, but like it like kind of matches with the spin direction. I don't know if anything I'm saying makes sense right now, but like, I guess I could, okay, I have a better way to say it. They come out horizontally rather than vertically. There we go. I think that's a better way to explain it, but because they come outwards, you know, horizontally rather than vertically, I think this might actually be a better blade. Because when they come out vertically, obviously the barrier, you know, these rubber pieces are just hitting against, you know, these bays, and not only can that, you know, break it, which they didn't break easily or anything, but it was like just hitting in kind of a rubber wall type of thing, which I guess makes sense for a barrier, but I think to be actually effective, having it come out horizontally, that gives it a lot more not resistance, but like gives it more, I guess less resistance, in a sense, where it can push in easier, you know, it's not going to bend weirdly because it's, you know, vertical. It pushes in easier because, you know, it comes outward horizontally from the blade. I know this is probably a really whack explanation, but I hope the point kind of was gotten across. I was trying to explain how this might work. Because basically, you know, having it vertically was just kind of awkward. And again, it kind of led to some weird, you know, stuff with it. I know opposite spin it was crazy, but same spin it just died immediately. I think this might actually help it a lot with same spin. I don't think it'll be great same spin, but I think it'll help it out. And I think this thing's going to be just an absolute monster opposite spin like it was before. But yeah, sorry about the kind of awkward explanation. It's just a weird explanation. Like, if you look at it, and I guess I probably had the picture of it earlier, but like, yeah, if you look at kind of how it looks, you probably got what I was saying, I hope. It's just kind of a weird explanation, I guess, so yeah, I'll show that off more in the video, kind of what I'm talking about. It'll be easier with the unboxing when I have the thing in hand to explain it, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, Barricade, really, really cool. I like it a lot. I think it was done perfectly. So overall, I've been pretty positive on this release. I do like most of it. You know, disc and armor were perfectly fine choices if they're going to reuse parts. Driver seems pretty cool. I like the blade a ton. The Lucifer core, now I get to have some fun and complain. So it has apparently 3 strong locks and 3 BU locks. So this does kind of go back to my issue of, they keep advertising these BU locks as like a big deal, but we don't get BU lock discs, we only got 2 of them. And for some reason, they've been putting them on everything and making a big deal about it. Like, you only gave us 2 discs. That's not even enough for a full deck. A full deck of 3, not even like 5G, which I think is what they use in Japan. Yeah, you're not getting 5 bays out of that, but you can't even get 3. So like, come on. You needed to make at least one more disc, maybe more, but still. I don't know. It's definitely something, but the gimmicks on the core, aside from the BU locks, which again they keep trying to push as a gimmick, I don't know why, but there's no other gimmicks. Why? Lucifer and Lucifer 2, both chips from Sparking had metal. Lucifer 2 also had a rubber stopper. I would not have expected them to go all in with the rubber. I would have, seen maybe like the middle parts from like Bahamut and Kirbyus, but not the side parts that they have, just the middle one. That would have made perfect sense to me. And I think had they had that rubber piece, it would have been pretty good. Or I think better yet, the metal would have made this like really great. Or just both. That would have been phenomenal. But if anything, it should have at least had metal. Now there is always the chance that they just didn't mention it, but I feel like they wouldn't skip out on something like that, especially with how few cores have had metal. Only Perseus and Longinus, one per spin direction. Like, look at sparking chips. For, right spin, we had Lucifer, Lucifer 2, Hyperion 2, Solomon. Left spin, you had Helios 2, and then you had the 2 LRs with, Diablos and Spriggan. A lot of metal chips. We've only had 2 metal cores, come on. Like, we really could have used another one. Probably a couple more in general. I think a couple other cores should have had metal. They didn't. I don't know why they've been so stingy with that with DB. We really needed more metal cores. We just didn't get them for some reason. But yeah, this Lucifer core, honestly disappointing. I would have really liked to see more metal. I think everyone anticipated metal in this thing, and they just didn't do it. Unless by some miracle they just didn't mention it, but I doubt that, so I'm going on the assumption that they just did not include it, which really sucks. So overall, how do I feel about this release? I think it's a pretty solid release. Again, that core really hurts it, but aside from that, I think everything else is pretty acceptable. So I'm fine with everything else. It's just the core. You really, really could have used some work there. But outside of that, like, having Lucifer as a final bay, I kind of don't agree with. I don't really like that it's the final bay. The VS set would have made a lot more sense in my opinion. I guess maybe there was some reason they couldn't do that, but like, whatever. Lucifer just feels like a very, very awkward final bay in my opinion, so I'm not fully on board with that. Also, Lucifer even getting a DB evolution over some other bays just seems very, very strange to me. And again, assuming this is the final BU bay and there's no more burst or, at least no more DB, where was Death Scyther? Death Scyther got 3rd place in the Beyblade election. 3rd. And did not get a DB evolution. First was Valkyrie, second was Excalibur. That just shows, it beat Spriggan, it beat Phoenix, Ragnarok, Kirbyus, Achilles, Fafnir, Longinus. All of these really popular motifs were beaten by Death Scyther, and they just didn't give us a Death Scyther in DB. But I guess I'm getting a little bit off track here. I'll save some of this other stuff for my kind of end of Beyblade Burst, or maybe just end of BU. Maybe I'll do like an end of BU discussion, then just kind of a Beyblade Burst kind of reflection in general at a later time. But overall, Lucifer kind of taking away, the idea of it being kind of the final release and not including some things people were hoping to see in BU. I think it's a pretty good bay. I do like it. Just the core really could use something, but it just kind of got stuck in an awkward spot in my opinion, and I'm still a little bit iffy on whether or not it should have really gotten a DB evolution, but like, then again, you have things like Knight that got it, so I probably shouldn't complain too much. But overall, just looking at the bay itself, yeah, it's pretty cool, so it's nice. So that's that. That is potentially the final kind of Beyblade news discussion, so I will continue to do discussions on other things, and again, I will do a BU discussion, kind of end of BU, and then also, maybe like a month or two from now, I will do like a, just a burst reflection video or something, so hopefully that'll be fun, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, that's all for this video, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.